changes so quickly, it'll toss you all around. This world belongs to darkness, it'll only let you down. Oh, in the morning, let my prayer come to you. Lord, I need you. Father, when you call me.
Hi, I'm Dr. Timothy Conley. This is Sister Janessa Howard. How are you doing today?
Hi.
The title of our program is Back to the Garden, Finding Your Way Back to Eden. And if you go back to the Garden of Eden story, all of our problems began when we listened to a serpent instead of God. So there's a lesson here. Listen to God first and not so much to a serpent. But if you think about what that story is really saying and you don't get too literal with it, there's a very important message in that story. And it's simply this. We're told that Eve was told by the serpent, if you eat this, you won't die, that you'll be able to understand and have a knowledge of good and evil. And you'll be like gods. I think those were the exact words of the serpent. And she then got her husband, and the two of them ate. And that pretty much, I think, tells us that what kicked us out of Eden was our selfishness, our desire for more than happiness, peace, joy, and love. The innocence that was prevailing in the Garden of Eden. It should have been enough to make anybody happy, but no.
Not us. You said that the story of Adam and Eve is actually a symbolic story. What is the symbology here?
Well, I think you have to understand that everybody individually gets to say, what can I draw from that story? What can I gain from it?
Okay.
And most symbolic stories have some literal aspects to them. But in time, it's hard or impossible to know what's literal and what isn't. But the desire to be gods ourselves brought us right smack into a world where we have to bust our butts to make anything work. In God's world, positive energy abounds. In our world, there's an equal interplay of positive and negative energy.
Well, you said that before, we wanted a world that we could control instead of the wonderful world that was just put there for us. We wanted to be in control. We wanted to be the gods of that world. We wanted to determine what we were going to do and what we weren't going to do. And I think that you taught in one of your previous lessons, Reverend Tim, that we wanted a world where we could do that and where we had to, like you said, bust our butts to make anything work. And so now this is the world we're stuck in.
And I think the main aspect of that is that if we understand that the more we try to control things, the more our expectations are, it has to be just like this, it has to be exactly this way, it has to be the way I want it to be, the more intrusive our desires and wants become, the less happy we're going to be. And I think that's really all the author of that story was trying to say, is that the moment we decided we want to be totally in control of everything, we want to be able to, that's where we kicked ourselves out of Eden. That's where and that's where we are today. Eden is simply a representation, I believe, of a world where we're happier and more at peace, and where there's more love abounding. And
a world where we were obedient to God and we did what He would have us do.
Right. And I think the key to that is not that we're going to be talking in just a few minutes about the importance of love. How love is the only thing that ultimately brings peace, joy, and happiness.
Love is the answer. That's one of our favorite mottos. Love is the answer.
And when we become, I want this to be just like this, when we put ourselves in this position of control and management and in charge, then at that very moment, everything begins to just flow away from that. It's no different with in your church, in your band, at work, in your family. When you begin with declarations of how things ought to be, how things need to be, and have strict requirements, then what you do is you take away from other people their creativity. You take away from other people their ability to make mistakes. And you have this concept that you know best. I think all of us have discovered again and again that we don't know what's best.
But we think we do, and a lot of times if we come across that way, I hope we're not coming across that way, but when we come across that way as if I know everything and I'm going to tell you how it's going to be, then you're in for problems because the other people don't want to hear that and they don't want to accept that. We're asked in this world to cooperate, to tolerate, to cooperate, to accept. And so our word love applies here. It's a word that we're using in a godly way. We're not talking about a romantic kind of love, but we're talking about a godly kind of love, the type of love that God has for each one of us.
The New Testament teaches that Jesus was the perfect example of sacrificial love. And we're guilty almost all the time of trying to have contractual love. And that love is based on, I'll love you if you do this for me. I'll love you if these requirements are met. And that now, with a lot of Christian teachings, most notably the prosperity gospel, it's the idea that God desires us to be prosperous, successful, and that if we tell God exactly what we want, then God is going to be obedient to our will and is going to owe us that success and that prosperity.
Exactly. We're here, if we do nothing else, maybe we're here tonight to say that that entire idea, that entire belief system, we believe, is wrong, bad, unhealthy, and not only that, false.
It's tainted in a way that it's not that there isn't some truth to it. If I want something and I work hard for it, I obviously increase the chances of getting it. But when we fail to understand that there are random forces at work in our world, you hear people say all the time, there's nothing that just happens. Everything happens for a reason. And no, I don't think everything happens for a reason at all. I think a lot of things happen because they just happen that way. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes life so rewarding, so interesting, so challenging, so frustrating.
It's surprising.
It's because you don't know when you walk outside whether you're going to meet the nicest person, the next best friend you're ever going to have, or you're going to meet somebody who's going to just frustrate you to no end. And sometimes it's the person you think is going to be your friend or your love. They're the ones who frustrate you, and other times vice versa. So we have to just live things out with an openness that allows us to experience this. And we're going to be talking about a word called surrender. Just surrender to that and allow that to just be.
So our objective here tonight, the reason we're here talking with you, we want to get across our idea of how to get back to the garden, how to get back to that state of life and that state of relationship with God that brings inner peace, that brings calm, that brings just a joy of living and a joyful looking forward to being with God. And we call that how to get back to the garden.
I've got here in my notes that Christ teaches that sacrifice, the surrendering of ourselves, our goals, our time, our possessions, to do what we genuinely believe to be God's will. And that sacrifice is love-based, it's humility-based. And the single greatest enemy of sacrifice is we're going to call the ugly three: greed, selfishness, and ego.
Yeah.
These three things together are the evil trinity that one could legitimately call the devil. They prevent us from listening to God. They prevent us from acting on God's will for us. They prevent us from caring about others. They often prevent us from caring about ourselves. They are so good at disguising themselves that even most acts of apparent sacrifice are badly tainted by greed, selfishness, and ego.
This material world that we're living in now, we believe, is we can look at it as being a training program, perhaps. We can look at it as a proving ground. It's a place where we learn and we practice how we're going to get back and be with God. Because sooner or later, we all know, we don't want to talk about it, but we all want to know that we are going to transition into a different kind of a world. And we believe we're going to transition back into a spiritual type of existence and eventually get back to being one or into completeness and complete unity with God, our Creator. And so what we're doing in this material world is the practice and the learning and the falling down and the getting back up again and getting our hands dirty and then learning how to wipe them clean.
It's very odd that all of our best efforts generally lead to more and more and more feelings that this next thing we should also control. This next thing we should also be able to hold and harness to our will. And because willfulness has value, it has advantages, it does good, it's hard to understand just how much will is positive and how much of it begins to enslave us and causes us this massive unhappiness. And in our next program, we're going to talk about what we often call the big three, which are love, surrender, and forgiveness, and how to put those into a balanced way.
That's right, and how they are going to help you deal with your life problems. Thanks.